Yeah. Hello. That was a botch on my end.
That's a cold open if I ever saw one. Hi, how are you?
That was a botch. I changed the thing because I didn't see the dad's intro video in your thing.
It's not there. Oh, shit. Anyway, hi everybody. Welcome to Dad's. It's
Hi,
Friday.
Dr. Nick.
Right, that's it. We are live. It's Friday. It's that every other Friday, except we've got a couple weeks because we just have because we're a little busy with the WrestleManias. So it is what it is.
And there's me botching again. Just keep talking.
Okay, I'm just going to keep on going. There we go.
Went back to
Anyway,
your thing.
well, we also can't use the dad's intro because apparently that's copyrighted now. So we have to think of a new song anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because
Yeah.
anyway,
we
yes.
skipped a week because of the topic at hand today. It had been suggested to us by everyone's favorite resident statistician, Stat Boy Mike.
Yes.
That we do something Beach Boys related and bring Pop back because of how much Pop loves the Beach Boys as much as the Beatles, darn near. The Beatles will always be number one, but the Beach Boys probably really close 1A, number 2, And it was like, okay, so what can we do? What can we do? And we start looking things up, start Googling, and it was like, I Get Around was their first number one single. And that's 60 years tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we were like, that's a hell of a milestone to celebrate.
I would say that, yeah.
There we go. Their first number one. Let's make that our excuse for the topic. And we're a couple weeks away from Memorial Day, which is always kind of the unofficial kickoff of the summer season anyways.
Very true.
You're the first summer movie blockbusters always come out Memorial Day weekend. So it just seemed like it was good timing. If you guys get the reference there, I'm sure Pop got it. I think Jeff.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, this should be fun.
It's funny you bring that one up. We'll get that one later.
Let's hope that YouTube doesn't shut us down.
Jeez. It's definitely the dad.
Keep going all day, folks. The dad puns are in full effect here, and we've got not one, not two, but 3 dads on the air.
Yes, the dad joke's not always on wrestling, apparently, for this Friday, so it's all good.
But it's a great thing to be celebrating, and it was like, okay, well, now it's time to narrow down the songs. And for a band that's been active for 62 years, 63 years.
That's crazy.
It's kind of hard to pick 10 songs.
No, it is. And
so I went through Spotify and I made a playlist, like almost 40 songs, I think it was. Yeah. And there were songs that weren't even on there because for whatever reason, they're not on Spotify.
Now that's the money thing with Spotify and the agreements and everything. They're mostly on YouTube, but even then, you gotta really like narrow down which ones are the proper copies, the proper tracks, the proper cuts, whatever you want to call it. So it's
like the only tracks from Make It Big that were even on Spotify, aside from the classics that were on there, were Kokomo and Wipeout with the Fat Boys, because that's on the Fat Boys album Crushin'.
Yes.
Somewhere Near Japan, Make It Big, like half of the album is missing.
Right.
Summer in Paradise, which featured John Stamos's version of Forever, not on there at all.
Oh, that's a crime in itself.
The theme for Problem Child that they did, not on there at all. And I'm like, dude, like these are some classics here that I want to have to drive around with as I'm delivering my Uber Eats, bumping my Beach Boys playlist.
Right.
Like I've been doing for the better part of this last week.
Yeah.
So I could try to narrow down what I wanted to pick.
Right.
My selections. I know the playlist helped you a great deal, Jeff.
It did, because I did grow up a K-Earth 101 baby. If you're an LA person, you know what I'm talking about. Listening to Shotgun Tom Kelly play these songs, which he still does now on 60s Gold on Sirius. Not that I'm randomly chilling for Sirius or Shotgun, but I love Shotgun Tom, so why not?
Yeah, same. I met him.
He's still going, dude. I love me some Shotgun Tom Kelly, dude. Good for him. But yeah, it was one of those. Okay, I know the songs, but which are the 10 of my favorites? And it's like, okay, so went to the list. Okay. Recognition by song name. Okay, boom, those are automatically on top. And then I did a name that tune. Okay, I remember that song, so just I ended up filling out my 10. Then I go, okay, now which one's one, which one's demon. Lining them up is always the hardest part for any of us that do these shows, the top 10s. Picking the 10's easy. It's like, okay, now where do they rank? That's the true bitch.
For me, what I always try to do is I try to pick my number 1 or 2.
Fair.
And then I always try to pick, okay, well, which one's at the other end? Which ones are the weakest of my 10? And then let's just fill in the middle here. Because by then you've already eliminated about half of your roster by doing that.
That's fair. I'll have to remember that when we do our show on the 31st, whatever that may be.
But as always, we want you guys to be sounding off in the comments what your favorite Beach Boys songs are. Pop, I know you had a couple of honorable mentions that popped up on Jeff's list, so I know all the lists, people, because I'm the one that put the graphics together.
Right.
So when one of your honorable mentions pops up on his list, feel free to speak on it. That way we don't need to go back to it later.
Good.
Jeff, how is yours, good sir?
It is. And again, folks, if I have to duck out early, I do apologize to the two gentlemen and to everybody watching, but court-ordered transportation calls. So number 10 for me is one that kind of found itself having a sequel during the holidays, but the original song I felt definitely needed to be included on here. It's one that I heard a lot more during the K-Earth days than I do now on the serious 60s gold days. But it's still one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. Otherwise, it wouldn't be here. And that's Little Deuce Coupe.
Mm-hmm.
I, again, as a California child, all three of us, as a for lack of a better term, an LA person, near the beach or at the beach. You two guys were near to the beach, and I was living out here in the freaking high desert most of my life. But the Beach Boys embodied the California mindset, the attitude, the lifestyle. And if it was the Beach Boys, it was either the surf or it was the car. For California, it was a little bit. Southern California, it was always both. And Little Deuce Coupe definitely encapsulated the love of the cars within California. We are, as we always find out in this state, especially in this region of the state, we are very much a car-driven society. And the cars of the 60s and the cars, the cars that the Beach Boys sang about, there it is. Try to find that phrase in my brain. That was fun. Just are those classic, 60s muscle cars, man, that you heard coming when they were in the next kind of like, oh, here comes so-and-so, because you knew down the road. It was almost like the Munster Mobile walking down the road. You're like, oh, here they come. Great song. It just shows the simple, basic love of your machine. It's all, singing about a car is very much like singing about your girl. It's very much a love song. And Little Deuce Coupe is one of those like, oh, it's my car. So that's how I felt about it anyway.
I think that's a lot of what their popularity is that they touched on what was happening with their listening audience at the time, which was surf, sun, cars, racing. That's what everyone was tuned into. So they really tapped into that popularity and kind of put into song what everyone was doing at that time. And Little Deuce Coupe is a great example of that.
And you figure my dad was into the early part of his teens in the mid 60s, living out here. My mom was still a wee tot at that point, not quite. She was born in the early part of the decade, and I'm just going to leave that where it is, because if I say any more about her age, she's going to come home and throttle me when she gets here, as she should. That's her right. But cars, sun, surf, girls. Like, if anything else out of those four in Southern California, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, what? I don't understand that. Everything else, it was second best. However, when it got to Christmas time, when it got to the holiday season, the Beach Boys recognized that even the Southern California lifestyle needs a little bit of a holiday twist. So Little Deuce Coupe became Little Saint Nick. Now, I'm obviously biased toward this song as a Santa ambassador. You know, as much as I love my. Oh, was there a funny comment, or just laughing at me?
Just I knew that out of all of us, you were going to have Little Saint Nick on your list. So
yeah, it's definitely more of a. I don't think it's really a parody of Little Deuce Coupe, although it kind of is. But at the same time, it's got its own story. It's you think it's talking about the sleigh as much as it's talking about the man, and it is. But Santa has his shows. There's a great song, "Must Be Santa" by I've heard it done by a few different people. My favorite version is Mitch Miller and the gang. But he's got his beard, he's got his hat, he's got his suit, he's got his reindeer, and he's got his sleigh, and he's got his missus, and he's got the toys. That's Santa. So the sleigh is so vital to his journey once a year, and the Beach Boys just freaking made it a California beach song. I think that's so funny. It was great, and the way they described it, how it's all slick, and it's more of a sled than a sleigh. I just thought that was neat. Very much made it put it in the surfer, the Southern California mindset, even though it's a Christmas song about Santa's sleigh. I just thought that was a great touch. These guys were so creative. These guys were so just on the pulse of what was topical at the time that they were hot. And you got to remember, holidays during the 60s, everybody had a Christmas album. Everybody had a Christmas album, or at least a Christmas song or two in their single release of the time. You talk to Ross Bagdasarian, he had like 6 albums within 2 years because he could make his first start like this, and all of a sudden he's a superstar. But the Beach Boys found a way to make it appeal to their audience with Little Saint Nick, talking about the sleekness of the sleigh. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a neat touch.
Definitely.
The next one for me, number 8, definitely hit the KRS rotation. If I didn't hear this song every day going home in the car from school or on the way to grocery shopping, I was afraid the radio was broken or something. This was definitely one of those. There's a lot of these, but 409. And you talk about just a catchy, like it's going to capture your I guess your basic emotion, like the primal part of you that just loves the sounds and loves everything about your car, everything about the life out here at that time. And it was just about the car and about the verbiage is not coming with me today. I'm so sorry. I also have a freaking 100-pound lap dog in my lap, so I'm a little distracted by her patheticness. I apologize. 409 was just one of the ones I heard first. It wasn't so much, I guess, the individual lyrics or the specific words. It was just, I remember hearing it so much every single day I was out, whether I was going to school or on an errand or, out on a drive. 409 always popped up on the radio because it was so hot for so long that when the idea of an oldies station, if you will, came to be, like the Beach Boys were always there, and 409 was one of their heavy rotation repeats. So I just remember it very distinctly. So
I was never really. I'm sorry. Right. I was never really a car guy, but I learned a lot about cars from the lyrics of the song. I had no idea about 4-speed dual quad posit traction 409 until I heard the lyrics to the song.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember hearing 409 more as the song for the commercial. I think it was for the cleaner. I I remember right, in the 80s and 90s. So that's that's what I remember distinctly more than anything. So, but again, it was constant play because I was very much a television kid, very much a TV baby. So if I wasn't hearing it in the car, I was hearing it on the commercial every single day. So it just stuck with me. This one is going to be one of the ones that I know was much more geared toward the not car audience. These are the guys that are out in the water. These are guys that are out soaking up that sun and getting on that surf and safari that was the Southern California beach lifestyle. Surf and safari, I definitely think of the Beach Boys whenever I do get out to the beach, which, as you can tell, is quite often. With my translucent skin going here in the middle of the high desert. But when I get near, whenever I would go see Dylan's mom when we were first, courting, and they lived near Venice Beach, I always think of these next few songs, the surfing and the just even now, Venice Beach and Redondo and Santa Monica, there's always surf out there. It's a little more high maintenance now because of the increase in animal traffic, shall we say, in the water, and definitely along the beach and the boardwalk itself. There's a few more icy incidents than there ever used to be, but it's still very much a way. And the song Surf and Safari definitely with just the, it's almost like you can go out into the water. And again, I don't swim, but the Beach Boys allowed me to make myself present in these moments. Surf and safari, it's like you're going out on a safari. You just get out in the middle of that water and nothing else is important but the feel of the board and being able to just wrap yourself in the moment. I think that's what was so appealing about the Beach Boys period, was you could definitely bring yourself into the mindset of songs like Surf and Safari, of songs like Surfin' USA, which is my next one, because even though it was very much embedded in the lifestyle here in Southern California, the Beach Boys became popular nationwide and, even globally, if we want to be really honest. So the whole nation got caught up in the fandom of the Beach Boys as much as they did Beatlemania in the 60s. And the California lifestyle was so idealistic that people just latched onto it, because if you weren't a child of the 60s, that means you were already an adult or you weren't even thought of yet. And if you were an adult in the 60s, you were more stressed than you wanted to admit. So they wanted to escape into that surfing and girls and cars and just like, let me just imagine a place where I can go and just be there in my mind for the moment. And, some people chose to get there medicinally, and that's cool too. That's the 60s, baby. But the music definitely was part of that. And Surf and Safari and Surfing USA both just allowed the people to be present somewhere other than their own troubles, I guess, for lack of a better term, in those moments.
Surf and Safari was originally released as a single in June of 1962. Wow. And the B-side of Surf and Safari was 409. So
there you go.
Songs there were the A and B side of one of their early singles.
Well, so there you go. You've got the perfect album. You got one side about the car, the other side about the surf. That's California, Southern California, back in those days. So my next two are very much about the fourth topic the Beach Boys always tended to veer toward. That's the ladies, the Southern California ladies and California girls. I think as much as I look back at California Girls and the album cover and the movies and the TV of that, and you go, man, that was about as idealistic as it got, because it definitely wasn't like that around the rest of the country, and it definitely didn't stay like that for very long from what I've been told. But man, if you were a California girl and out there on the beach and you're recently, made and produced and sold bikini swimsuit, it's like, man, you had everything going for you, because you could pop out of that beach and next to nothing and capture all the surfer boys' attention. That's what a California girl was able to do, and they were out there to lay out on that beach and just not say a word. I wish they all could be California girls. It's the lyrics, You talk about the girls from all the different parts of the country, and Lord knows these guys were seeing those girls as they got to tour. But it always became about coming back home and seeing their girls and seeing the girls that motivated them to return home and be as Californian as they were, as SoCal as they were, as beach as they were, and the girls that were featured at the time. Figure God. Annette Funicello went from a Musketeer to her and Frankie doing the beach movies. There's your story, man. You freaking go from the Musketeer to being out there and being part of the surf craze. Annette Funicello was very much the California girl back then, even though she wasn't the buxom blonde, but she hit it perfectly. She was a star of that genre going into the 70s and 80s. She was the quintessential California girl there for a while, and the Beach Boys definitely captured that feeling in this song, no doubt about it.
Little background on this one, came out in 1965, and they were touring in Europe at that time, and that kind of inspired the lyrics of seeing all the different girls around the world and wishing they could all be California girls.
And been all around this big wide world, and I've seen all kind of girls. It's like, yeah, they had been at that point.
Right. And they, Brian kind of patterned this one after the Beatles patterned back in the USSR after this song about the California girls. And Brian's at one time said this was his favorite Beach Boys song, California Girls.
We all love Pop for the knowledge that he has on these shows. That's exactly why JJ asked him to come back for stuff like this, because the brain and presentation of an educator with the fandom of fill in the genre here. It's a beautiful combination. I love it.
I have to mention, we talked about it on the Beatles show, that I normally don't like covers of my favorite groups and favorite songs, but I have to admit that DLR, David Lee Roth's version of California Girls, did the song justice and brought a whole new feel to the song. And it was so lively and vibrant. It's one of those covers that I do like.
David Lee Roth definitely was one of the few that did a cover song. Especially, there were so many hits from just this group alone, but from the music of the 60s period, and there were so many attempts at covers, and it was just like not so much. But David Lee Roth definitely pulled it off with this one. The other song I have is specifically about
real quickly before you get that, we did get a $2 super chat from Josh popping in to say hi to Pop and to be a kiss ass.
Hey, Josh.
We definitely will not scoff at the $2, Mansfield. Good to see you here.
And with Josh, is not necessarily in that order, so there is that. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
100% right. JJ, without revealing, because I know you don't want to spoil, how many actual repeats did we have between the three lists?
If you don't count the 2 honorable mentions that Pop submitted, then we only had 4 repeats. If you do want to count the honorable mentions, we had 6 repeats
in 30
out of 30 songs. Technically 32 if you count honorable mentions, but 30 different songs.
Yeah,
6 repeats.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that we had 24 or 26 if you don't count the honorable mentions, unique choices.
Yeah,
that's how awesome these guys are.
And K-Prayer, I'm starring each one of your picks, and I'll bring them up once you get all 10 of yours in there.
Yes,
so
sir.
If you don't see your number 4 for me is blah, blah, blah. That's why I'm waiting for all 10 of yours to get in there.
Well, my number 4. Yes. Oh, go ahead, Jerry. I'm sorry.
One other rumor on this one is that Brian actually wrote the melody to this one when he was on an acid trip. Of course, the only one that'll ever really know is Brian, if he remembers.
Right.
That's fair.
Well, I mean, from what I've been told, the sheer nature of acid is that you burn it away. So probably not. But listening to the melody, it's like, I mean, I can imagine being on a trip and having that music flow through my brain and go, you know what, that sounds pretty good. Let me get that shit down.
Yeah.
So,
And Walter here with a little bit more ass kissing. No disrespect to my two friends, but I'm just gonna automatically agree with Pop's list. Just
no,
because,
that's
Thanks,
valid.
Walter.
No, no. If you get music that was out, released, and whatever prior to, we'll give JJ till he was, and we'll give it till 1980 when he was 4, can actually remember comprehending stuff. Anything before that, you're gonna default to Jerry here. It is what it is, because it was Jerry who taught JJ about the Beach Boys
yeah,
songs, because that's how it went. So
I
I'm
was
sorry,
gonna
may I help
say
you?
getting to Big G's super chat here. $5, showing it love to everyone in the room. Would love to talk music with Pop one of these days. To,
Exactly.
to Jeff's
Yep.
point, my knowledge in music, and especially what we would consider classic rock. I mean, hell, you can hear Enter Sandman on the classic rock stations these
Oh,
days. It
oh.
smells like Teen Spirit, and my back freaking gets that little hunch in the spine every time I hear that stuff. But the stuff that we were raised on as classic rock, my
Yes.
knowledge of that is 100% owed to this gentleman underneath us.
Yes. I have definitely noticed a shift, and I didn't really notice it until I was working in the Disney kitchens, God, almost 2 years ago now, which is crazy to think about that I started there almost 2 years ago. But I finally heard K Earth branded no longer as, I know that the actual branding changed well before this, but I heard it branded as hits of the 70s, 80s, 90s. Okay, so they're not calling it oldies. So I don't feel so old anymore. I feel better about my life choices now, because
Yeah.
if you go to satellite, they don't call it old. It's 50s, whatever, 60s gold, 70s this, because they don't want to age anybody out of anything, which I'm
Yeah.
so appreciative of Sirius Satellite Radio for that.
It was probably about 15 years ago. I heard Janet Jackson on K Earth 101, and it
Oh,
was one of the songs from her Rhythm Nation album, and I was just like, okay, I'm officially old.
no, yeah,
Janet
like,
Jackson is on K Earth
yeah,
101. Like,
yeah.
this is the stuff I grew up with.
I was good with Michael as far as like Thriller and like Billie Jean's. Like, okay, that's early 80s. I can still be okay. Rhythm Nation's like 89. I'm like, yeah, I'm screwed. That's it. Forget it. Like, I'm done. I give up.
Let's
Yes.
try to get back to the topic at
Yes.
hand, especially since you're time limited, sir.
That's
So
very true. But now let me get my spine back in alignment and we can move forward. The other song that was primarily, shut up, Josh. Smack
no,
you.
he's talking about the programmers of the radio station.
Oh,
They'd be
what?
admitting that they're old by calling the station that. So
I mean, programmers, yes. I think Old Shotgun's owned his age, and he gives no craps. So anyway, Barbara Ann. Okay, I'm gonna be fully 100% transparent. I do love Barbara Ann. I did hear it on the radio long before I saw it on any television shows. But if you were a Saved by the Bell fan in that season that Tori Spelling randomly appeared for no damn good reason, Barbara Ann was your shit. Because the three boys slide into that room freaking Risky Business style and freaking lip syncing to that with their ridiculous instruments from cleaning tools, that was funnier than hell. That's where I remember Barbara Ann the most, is from that scene on Saved by the Bell. Now, granted, the entire song is fun. It's very much a ode to a single female compared to a group of girls. But Barbara Ann is fun. It's fast. It does a whole lot with very little time of the actual track, and I think that's what's cool about it. It's it's repeating her name, and you got me rocking and rolling. I mean, that's the chorus. So it's like that's how it was back then. You said that you made sure you got the lady's name right, and you let her know how much you rocked your world. That applies now, to be fair. So Barbara Ann's just fun, but yes, the image of Mark Paul Gosselaar, Mario Lopez, and the late Dustin Diamond just in there in tank tops and boxer shorts, for lack of a better description. And the four girls, including Tori Spelling, off in the little archway of the door, just laughing their asses off at him. It's just embedded in my brain forever. So much fun. But Barbara Ann is such a great song.
It is. My favorite version of Barbara Ann by the Beach Boys is on the Beach Boys Beach Party album,
Yes.
which they're just all sitting around, and I guess a tape recorder was running, and they kind of do it a cappella, and at the end
Nice.
they're all laughing. You know, it really is a fun song.
Another song, my number 3 song, is one that I definitely heard. I actually heard it less on the radio than I did used in various television shows. I mean, that sums up dating in a nutshell, which is why I don't successfully date very well. Anyway, thanks to the various things. Josh, I have no comment on that, just for reasons, because I just turned 41. So yeah, there you go. Whatever. I actually didn't see Most Saved by the Bell in first run because I didn't watch NBC Saturday morning. I watched. I know you did. I watched whatever channel was running the cartoons at that point. But one of the 2 through 13s, whatever it was, wasn't quite ready. Wasn't quite cable financial yet at that point in my life. I didn't even know the Disney Channel existed until I was in my teens. All right. So the next one, like I said, I heard it a little bit on the radio, but I definitely heard it more in television presentations sung by, when the Beach Boys would guest star on, fill in the show here, but most prominently on Full House. And it was when the Tanners went to, I think it was Hawaii or wherever it was, and Kokomo came on. Okay, full disclosure, the image JJ used surprised me because I've never seen Cocktail. So I had no idea it was on the soundtrack.
That's where it originated.
Well, there you go. So the song is that new? It's an 80s song? Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
1987, 88, whatever your Cocktail was.
Right.
That was their big, comeback.
Oh, okay.
Because
as
you figure throughout the 70s and the early 80s, the Beach Boys were there.
Yeah.
But they weren't really successful. They were just kind of churning out albums, and occasionally something would hit. That's when you would get things like Good Timin'. That's when you got things, and they were a novelty act. They were there.
Oh, okay.
Kokomo was We're Back Bitches.
Right. Okay. And it definitely was, because you couldn't turn on a television show in the late 80s, early 90s if the Beach Boys were even on the set with hey, come here, do Kokomo. That's just how it was. And that's why it was on Full House when they were on the island. I remember that very distinctly. I'm going to mention another Full House song here as my honorable mention here momentarily, but I'm sure you guys figured out what that is by now if you're a Full House fan. But yeah, Kokomo, it's got a great set of verses, and the chorus is not only fun, it's easy. It's easy to remember, and it's got a great beat and a great melody to it. The whole song just flows fantastically. And if you figure it originated in that movie, it makes so much more sense.
Yeah, and
so
I'm usually not a fan of reworking lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have the Jim Morrison philosophy when, Ed Sullivan tried to get them to change the lyrics, girl, we couldn't get much higher.
Right.
To perform on the show. But when the Muppets covered it and changed Give Me a Tropical Contact High to Under a Tropical Island Sky,
it worked.
I was like, it works. And it's age appropriate. I just couldn't imagine Kermit the Frog singing about a contact high, so it worked.
Yeah, not Kermit. Maybe Dr. Teeth in the band, but not Kermit.
Yeah. And I'm going to say hold off on your honorable mentions because it might pop up later.
Okay, well, fair. So number 2 gets back to the genesis of the show and why we picked today and where it all came around to, because when you talk about why we decided it, we get around to this song, I Get Around, their first ever number 1. That makes sense for reasons, Cape Rare. There you go. Tutti Frutti and Kokomo. That's a hell of a A and B side. But anyway, I Get Around is definitely one. I think I Get Around was the K-Earth theme song. Like, I really think it was, because it was on every top of the hour commercial they ran during the course of a day. If you didn't hear I Get Around on K-Earth, you weren't actually on K-Earth. I think you were listening to some random like freaking satellite feed that only your car picked up on because you had some weird like freaking cosmonaut shit in your antenna. But otherwise, I Get Around was playing on your radio if you were in Southern California during that period. It just was what it was. And it's only not my number one for a reason I'll divulge here momentarily when I get to number one, but I just remember loving every single time this song came on when I was a kid. I still get smiley and giddy when I hear, hey, it's I Get Around. I make whoever's driving with turn it up. If I happen to pick it up when I'm here at home, I blast that shit, annoys the hell out of the kid, which is even more fun. It's just there's a reason it was their first hit. It really is, because Jerry, you mentioned they've been around for a couple years prior to this, but this song hit on every check box. It checked every box of what a 60s hit based in this area of the world was about. It just resonated. And I think that's why it became the reason the Beach Boys really just took off, because it was such a universally capturing song for everybody that ever heard it.
Mm-hmm. a lot of the guys, girls would go cruising in the 60s, and I Get Around is definitely a cruising song.
Absolutely.
I'm getting bugged driving up and down the same old strip. Got to find a new place where the guitars rip, you know.
Yeah, it's again, it was about that lifestyle of non-complacency. You just wanted to keep moving and keep going where the party was, keep going where the guitars were riffing, just keep getting to that next, whether it was drug induced or not, that next fix, that next high. You wanted to keep the party going. And I Get Around was definitely that cruising party song. This one is of the same vein. Yeah, the subject of the song got herself in a little bit of trouble. Having a little too much of the title track, but it mentions a T-Bird so much that it immediately resonated with my dad and I, because he was a Ford Thunderbird guy, and that is fun, fun, fun. That's why I chuckled so much when you said fun, fun, fun. My number one. Look at that car. Look at that car in that shot. Oh my God, I can't even.
It's a bit.
It is. That's and that was a great car, as anything was. But the idea that when my dad had his T-Birds in the 90s, and he was going from the one he bought last to, they were going to transition the look to that old style look from the 60s with the freaking bubble windows and just like that classic T-Bird. Like, he never did end up getting it because it was just so far out of the range of what we were trying to spend on a friggin' car. But it was more about the mindset. Like, he had some great cars. He had the 280Z at one point. He had a beautiful Pontiac at one point. He had all the great cars, but he never got himself that classic 60s era Thunderbird. And hearing the boys sing about, the girl daddy taking the T-Bird away, it was just one of those, like, yeah, he got his T-Bird taken away because he couldn't get the one he actually wanted when it was going to be released. It was like, oh, so it's a little bit of a bittersweet one, but it's still just it's going to be a fun song by definition. It's the name of the damn song, Jeff. But
exactly,
it's great. It's just a great, great Beach Boys song, and I think that's going to always be my all-time favorite.
I've got some notes on that one, that because the way the lyrics go in the song, it was. The legend about this song is that it was actually inspired by a real incident that involved the daughter of a radio station owner in Salt Lake City, who had actually taken her dad's 1963 Thunderbird. And then listening to the song, you kind of know the rest of what happened. Brian Wilson and Mike Love were at the station when the daughter was being reprimanded by her father. They overheard it, and they found it so funny that they wrote the song. And
That is,
it's patterned after Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good.
yes. Well, I mean, to be fair, in Salt Lake City, what the hell is there to do in 1963 or even now? Hey, to be fair, they're just not getting hockey, so good for them and everything. But it's like, what the hell do they do out there?
They thought it was cool enough that they wrote a song called Salt Lake City, so
That's valid. That's valid. That's fair.
it was on the playlist. I mean, it doesn't make any of our lists, but it's a cool
Right.
little ditty.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
All right, real quick before we throw it over to Pop, I'm going to run through Cape Rayers as Emmanuel
Okay.
finishes putting his list in here,
Yeah.
and then we'll go through Emmanuel's through the buffer between Pop and me. So for Cape Rayer, 10 for him is Help Me Rhonda. At number 9, he's got Fun, Fun, Fun. 8, God Only Knows. 7, Surfin' Safari. 6, Wouldn't It Be Nice? 5, Surfer Girl. 4, Sloop John B. 3, Good Vibrations. 2, Surfin' USA. And number 1 for him is Heroes and Villains.
That's a great list, Cape Rayer. There's,
That
I
is.
think mine is pretty close to that. You have maybe 2 different ones from what I've got. That's an excellent list.
Yeah,
Again, there you
some
go.
that Pop is going to have, some that's probably going to come up in a little bit on my list. But you still got, 20 more songs to listen through to see what else pops up here. So, but really good job there, Cape Rayer. A lot of good tracks. Let me go ahead and unstar them so they can get out of the little saved room here.
And thank you to the over 50 of you that are watching on a Friday afternoon, early evening. That's awesome. I love to see that. That's great.
All right.
Much appreciated to have that kind of audience on a Friday afternoon, because I know a lot of people are driving home from work, especially out here because it's almost 3 o'clock here, or they're getting ready for dinner if they're in Jerry's part of the country. So God bless you guys tuning in to our shenanigans.
All right. If you can move over to the comments, Jeff. Emmanuel's 10 are starred. We can get to those in between Pop and I.
Okay.
And I am over on Pop's side of things. So whenever you're ready, Pop, go ahead and begin your list.
All righty. I think maybe we should mention for those maybe too young to actually know the Beach Boys, that the Beach Boys originally were 3 brothers, Brian, Carl, and Dennis Wilson. Mike Love, their cousin, and then a neighbor down the street that jumped in to play guitar, Larry Marks.
Yep.
I think. Anyway, my number 10 is Be True to Your School.
Nice. That's appropriate.
This one is Brian Wilson did the music, and Brian and Mike Love did the lyrics to this one. Released in 1963 and was on the Little Deuce Coupe album. They wrote it as a tribute to Hawthorne High School in Southern California, which is where all 5 of the Beach Boys went to school. There's actually 2 versions of this song, Be True to Your School. The album version, which came out after the single, they added cheerleaders to it. So on the one with the cheerleaders, you hear the rah rah, sis boom ba, be true to your school. And when I was in high school, this would have probably been my junior year in high school. Myself and a good friend of mine, Ron Phillips, we did a lunchtime radio broadcast around the campus. And I remember causing quite a stir when I announced this song, saying, here's one that our football team should pay attention to. They'd been on a losing streak at that time, and as I found out later, it wasn't a good choice of words on my part. They weren't too happy about my introduction.
Yeah.
But I have always liked the spirit of this one, and anytime I hear it, it takes me right back to high school.
Dad, a rebel rouser stirring up trouble at school? Never.
Never.
Did the vice principal have you on speed dial also? Your parents?
No, it was
No,
just
that
a
was
bit of
just me.
humor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was the one in the upper right hand corner of the screen that had his
You know,
parent on speed dial. We were on first name basis with your
first name,
middle
yeah.
school.
They were doing
you
lunches.
you talked during the Jeff's list when he brought up California Girls about David Lee Roth's cover, and there's a couple other songs throughout your guys' list, and then even when we get over to mine, that I know you mentioned you're not like huge on cover songs of your favorite bands and artists, and I know we're going to disagree on genre because you've never really been huge on country. But a lot of the covers that were on the Stars and Stripes album that came out, that was kind of the Beach Boys version of the Common Thread Eagles album that we discussed when we did the Eagles show.
Yeah.
Some good stuff there. Toby Keith did a great version of Be True to Your School.
Yes, he did.
Sawyer Brown did a great version of I Get Around, which again is the song we're kind of celebrating here today.
Right.
And I'll touch on some others if and when they pop up on the list, but just some other really good stuff there that you wouldn't expect coming out of the country vibe, considering the Beach Boys were that California sound.
Right.
But just something about them, and Be True to Your School was one of those. So.
And and to be fair to your question, JJ, when Jerry was in school, and Josh, this is a joke just for you, was it more like this on speed dial, or was it the actual touch tone by that point? I tried to
For me,
speed
it
dial
was
this
touch
like,
tone.
yeah.
You didn't have to do the rotary when I was in school. Touch tone was around.
I was gonna say trying to freaking rotary back in the 60s or 70s. It's like, you know what? Hell with it. Just let him get in trouble. Bullshit.
Not only do I remember rotary, I remember we had something called party lines where
Oh my
neighbors
God.
shared the same telephone line. So you'd have to quietly pick up the receiver to make sure someone else wasn't already talking on the phone.
Yeah, that was the 60s version of AOL dial-up.
Yeah,
Get off the phone. I need to use a computer.
exactly.
Right.
It's dial-up modem. Anyway,
Yes.
number 9 on my list is God Only Knows. This one was Brian Wilson, and the lyrics on God Only Knows were actually written by Tony Asher rather than Mike Love. This one was in 1966 and came out on the Pet Sounds album, and was as a single. It was on the B side. It was the B side of "Wouldn't It Be Nice," another great song. This one is arguably considered one of the best songs of all time.
Yeah.
Brian insisted that when he was doing the arrangement of this one, that he actually had an orchestra that he could work with 20 session musicians, and used unusual instrumentations. They used sleigh bells. This one is funny. They used orange juice cups that they could tap. Carl Wilson sings lead on this one. And Bruce Johnson does the harmony. Bruce Johnson came along a little later with the Beach Boys. And God Only Knows What I Would Be Without You is probably one of the most amazing songs about true love,
Yeah, it's one of those. There's a song the songs that go around, and they have like even just that one line, that one lyric that just hits, and it's the title of the song is just so powerful because a lot of people just define themselves on that one true love, that one person in their life, and it's a powerful thing. And if you find it, you got to hold on to it, and if you find it enough where you've got the realization that you would be screwed and God only knows without you where would I be. That is, as Mr. Gold would say, Jay, true love. It's good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have it, at least to experience it, it's a great joy. And it's just a beautiful song, just from the opening of it. as soon as you hear the first few notes of it, you know exactly what song it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So number 8 is one we've already kind of discussed, and that was Fun, Fun, Fun.
Nice.
I really like that one. And we talked about how the daughter snatched the T-bird, and when they heard her getting reprimanded, they thought it was funny enough, and it turned into a really good song. To me, it's especially interesting because it's based on a true story, and it's not that unbelievable to believe that it was a true story.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
I had no idea it was a true story until it came up a minute or two ago. So
I didn't either.
I always just thought it was some good fiction that Brian wrote.
It's funny.
I'm sure it's embellished heavily, but even still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, you can definitely see a overprotective dad working at a radio station, first of all, which I think is funnier than heck that a radio DJ is the one reprimanded. It's like, you know what business you work in, right? Like, why are you tripping, dude? But anyway, yeah.
And
his girl stole his car. It's
Mike and Brian sitting in the lobby, snickering at the story.
Totally see it. Totally see it.
Moving on along to number 7. Number 7 is Wouldn't It Be Nice, which again was Brian Wilson, Mike Love, and Tony Asher on this one for the writing. Again on Pet Sounds and released in 1966. And as I just saw a minute ago pop up on the screen from Cape Rayer there, that many people consider Pet Sounds the album to be Brian's masterpiece album. Story goes that Brian was inspired by the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper concept album and was so impressed by that album that he decided he wanted to do a concept album also. And Pet Sounds was conceived as a concept album. And again, he used 16 pieces orchestra to create a wall of sound, kind of that Phil Spector building layer upon layer of instrumentation. And this one is it's a song about a young couple imagining what life would be when they grew up and got married. Wouldn't it be nice when we are older? Great
definitely
song.
Definitely a mindset rooted in that time. It's just from what I've been told, and Jerry, you can extrapolate because you lived it. There was so much more positivity about what was to come rather than what was back then. And this is another one of those songs that it just paints a hope for the future to be something better than we were ourselves at that point. It's great stuff. Oh, I love it.
The world hadn't become jaded yet. And granted, I wasn't alive back then, but it seems like starting with Vietnam, like the world mentality kind of started to change because you had Vietnam, then you had Watergate, then you had like all those integral things that really started to jade society. And prior to Vietnam, everyone was still kind of happy-go-lucky. Peace, man.
It's absolutely true. The 1950s was just an amazing decade. After the World War II, into the late 40s and early 50s, everybody, every family could afford a house. Every family had a car, one income, it was kind of the stereotypical Leave It to Beaver, father knows best kind of life. And then it rolled on into the 60s and started off that way. But as Vietnam started to rage,
I was going to say, they really, God, after the war, people could afford to make families. That's why there's a baby boomer generation. That's why that exists. But also, I'll even counter you saying Vietnam, and I'll say when Kennedy was assassinated is really when the world kind of went, ooh, like that we didn't expect that. Because you figure Kennedy was assassinated, and then not too long after, even after the Civil Rights Act was actually enacted, both Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, I think, really shook the world. Even my mom mentioned Bobby was the more jarring of the two because you just didn't expect him to go too. I think the '60s was very much a transition decade, and I think the Beach Boys and their music was kind of the trying to hold on to the positivity that was devolving exponentially as a result of all the high profile assassinations, and then of course our involvement in Vietnam, which was can be debated forever.
And that's where a lot of the rift came between Mike and Brian, because Mike kind of wanted to keep to the status quo. Let's do the surf songs, the girl songs, the fun songs, and Brian wanted to go more serious and experimental and talk about real life issues. And it's that's where things like Do It Again come from. It's like, look, let's just get back to the system that works and let's do it again.
Yep. It's crazy how much everything is influenced by one thing or one act, or how one counter to it influences everything. Look how influential these guys are. Like I said, there were how many songs on Cape Raiders list, how many songs coming up on Emmanuel's list, and how few differences we had in our 3 lists. That just shows how influential these guys were and how much this country especially wanted to hang on to. Oh God, just let it still be okay, because it wasn't.
Very true. Okay, number 6 is Good Vibrations.
There you go.
Brian Wilson and Mike Love. This one was released as a single in 1967. 1967 is when we had the Summer of Love, Flower Power. It quickly became a hit all around the world. The psychedelic tone of the song made it like an anthem for the Summer of Love in '67. Mike Love introduced an interesting instrument on this song, the theremin. The theremin is what makes that high-pitched tone on here. It had been around for a while, but mainly was only found in science fiction movies if they wanted a spaceship sound or something. And they decided to incorporate that into here. He used it for that haunting, recurring theme that we hear all through it. Good Vibration has all of these layers and soundscapes all through it as it builds, and its episodic structures. I actually have a quote here that says that it's characterized by its complex soundscapes, episodic structure, and subversion of the pop music formula. It was at that time, it's interesting, the most expensive single ever recorded. Good Vibrations later became widely acclaimed as one of the finest and most important works of the rock era, and has turned up on many, many top 100s of the past century. It's amazing. I remember the first time I heard it. It was one of those that you heard it the first time. Of course, I'm talking about record players now. I mean, right. You would have the record, and you would play it, and then right away play it again and play it again, just listening, because there was so much going on. It's like, whoa, did you hear that time?
Yeah.
This was
much harder to do back then too. So
yeah, yes. Definitely their psychedelic era. When you see the videos of them doing it on Ed Sullivan, even old Ed Sullivan's doing some strange camera stuff with a light show like effect for Good Vibrations.
I remember that. I remember seeing that on tape before. That was classic stuff.
It's a great song. I love that song. Let's see, where are we?
Number 5.
Number 5 is In My Room. In My Room, it's just another Brian Wilson and Gary Usher song. This one was released in 1963 on the Surfer Girl album, And as a single, it was the B-side of Be True to Your School. Both songs really tie together for me because of the connection to my high school years. Again, like I said, about Be True to Your School. A kid's bedroom back then was your hideaway. We didn't have computers or cell phones, or if you had maybe you had a record player. Most of us didn't even have a TV in our room. You had a record player and an AM radio, and it was your personal space. It's where you could go listen to the music you wanted to listen to, or sit and read. And I could sit in my room and just get lost in my own thoughts and dreams and possibilities for my future. Gary Usher, who co-wrote it with Brian, describes that Brian was always saying that his room was his whole world. And Brian himself has said, I had a room and I thought of it as my kingdom. And I wrote that song very definitely, that you're not afraid when you're in your room. It's absolutely true.
It's your sanctuary.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a place where you can go and tell your secrets to.
That's the word I kept coming back to as you were talking, is sanctuary.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I know you were reading, so you weren't really looking straight, but when you said kingdom, I had to do the whoa. And he's over here chastising me all quietly.
Dad jokes on wrestling, more on Friday. There you go. And I'll tell you what, though. If one of the best people I know can find solace and sanctuary in going to their room and reading, y'all at home can take a verb or two from them. To take a page or two from this guy. Just throwing it out there. Y'all need to start reading more. Read more and also get outside and touch some grass while you're at it. Anyway.
For real.
Yes.
Hell, go sit in the yard and read.
That's right.
Find
a corner. Find a corner. That's one of my favorite things to do with the kids at school now that I'm retired and just volunteering is trying to instill in them a love of reading and the adventures they can have between those two covers of that book.
8.
Number 4, California Girls. We talked pretty much about that one already on the last list. And so I think.
But please go into detail because I didn't provide a whole lot of detail on the track.
Well, I kind of threw it in there when you were talking about it, that they wrote it when they were on tour in Europe. They were inspired by it and patterned after back in the USSR. So that we kind of covered it. It's a great song. I still wish they all could be. The Midwest Girls are okay.
Well, I mean, that's where you're from, to be fair, but you know.
Yeah. Well, not much.
Not a bad looking bunch in Florida.
Been born in Missouri, but pretty much raised in SoCal.
That's fair. That's fair.
Absolutely. That's fair. I lived in Missouri the first 5 years of my life, and the next 55 years were in California.
Yeah. See, my dad was born in Cincinnati, but they were already out here before my aunt was born in 58. So between 56, 58, they were already going from Ohio to here. So. But yeah, and I'm sorry, Anson, if you watch. God help me, I'm gonna get shit for that one. That's okay. My dad doesn't care. My aunt will care a lot. But yeah, it's just one of those. You know, it talks about the idealism of Southern California lifestyle. It was just, it's everybody wants to come here. But I will say, having been there a few times, the girls in Florida not so bad either, Gary.
No, that's why I live on the West Coast of Florida.
Well done. Well played, sir. Well played. Very nice.
I'm still on the West Coast, on the water, just on a Gulf now instead of an ocean. But yeah, I love California Girls. Always have. You hear it and you can't stop and not picture the ones they're singing about it.
Right.
I still think that we had the best. Number 3, Surfin' USA. This song is credited as Brian Wilson and Chuck Berry. And the reason And the reason that it has Chuck Berry for writing credit is because it really is just a rewritten version of Sweet Little 16. If you ever listen to Chuck Berry's Sweet Little 16 and then listen to Surfing USA, all he's done is written new lyrics to the same melody song.
That's valid.
This one was released in 1963 with Shutdown as the B-side. So we had Surfing USA and then The Cars on the Other Side, another example of what Jeff was talking about. And it was then put as the opening track on their second album named Surfing USA. This one was a guiding force for all of the U.S. to become surfers. I mean, this song was played coast to coast, and whether you lived in Centralia, Missouri, or Redondo Beach, California, everybody's gone surfing USA. I mean, it brought the whole world. You didn't have to have a surfboard. It didn't matter. It became a way of life and a way of thinking.
And it's funny. You credit Chuck Berry gets the credit for the melody, the music of it. In reality, if it wasn't for his cousin Marvin Berry, there would have been no Chuck Berry having that sound anyway. So in reality, it's all Marty McFly's fault that this song exists. Really.
And you know what? Since you went there with the Michael J. Fox reference, Cape Rayer brought up the Teen Wolf reference with California Girls.
Yep.
This is the song that Scott Howard was surfing on the top of the minivan to.
Yes,
Teen Wolf.
Damn right.
That's right. Yeah, that is
damn right.
Yeah. I saw
Full
Cape
circle,
Rayer's comment. Yeah. I saw the comment and I was trying to think where in Teen. Oh, of course, that's that scene. Yeah.
So once again, everything in my life either ties back to wrestling, Back to the Future, The Kings, or some sort of sci-fi. One of those four.
I guess all of our lives are a circle, really.
That's
number
the circle of life.
Yes.
And
Number 2 on my list is Surfer Girl, number 2.
Nice.
This one is from their third album, Surfer Girl, released in 1963 and was the A-side with Little Deuce Coupe as the B-side. This one was the first song that Brian actually was listed as the producer for. And he wrote it for his girlfriend at the time, and later was quoted as saying that back in 1961, I'd never written a song in my life. I was 19 years old, and I put myself to the test in my car one day. I was actually driving to a hot dog stand, and I actually created a melody in my head without being able to hear it on a piano. I sang it to myself. I didn't even sing it out loud in the car. When I got home that day, I finished the song, wrote the bridge, put the harmonies together, and called it Surfer Girl.
It's just that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's so cool. To this day, I love this song. All of we surfers at the time wanted to have our own Surfer Girl to sit on the beach and watch us surfing out in the water. Blonde-haired, bikini-wearing, blue-eyed beauty. Some of us were lucky enough to have one, sit on the beach, and maybe for a while, and then not. So
there's reasons why Brian Wilson is considered a musical genius. That right there just illustrates one of them. To be able to come up with the melody, no piano, get home, work out the harmonies. First song he's credited as producer for. That just kind of says everything you need to know. And the word musical genius gets thrown around a lot these days. No. Brian Wilson is a musical genius.
And driving to a hot dog stand at that. That's the most Southern California story I think I've heard yet.
Right? Yeah. It's probably pink.
Yeah.
Probably pink. It's going to say.
Or somewhere in Hawthorne. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, people talk, or I've heard conversation about the Beatles and the Beach Boys and who's better, the Beatles or the Beach Boys. And it's kind of like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. When it comes down to it, these guys respect each other. They
Yeah.
respect each other for their talent and for their skill. And there's not really any rivalry, other than being inspired to write something similar and maybe go a step higher with it.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's Brian Wilson has been, and sadly, I just read an article today. I'll just throw this in there about Brian, and that's that Brian's wife, his second wife, passed away in January.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a few months ago.
Brian now is diagnosed with dementia
Yeah.
and not an executor, but someone has been appointed to take care of his affairs for him because he can't
Yeah.
really
Right.
track of everything. So
Yeah.
he's had
It's
some rough ups and downs in his life.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, there's no rivalries between the groups, but there's more rivalries within the groups themselves. That's the sad part.
Yeah,
honestly.
There's always artistic
Oh,
bumping
yes.
of heads.
Well, figure
And
these
especially
guys.
when family's involved, there's gonna be infighting.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got three brothers and a cousin here. That's just a recipe for throwing down. But yeah, these guys had problems. God, the Beatles famously broke up. The Eagles also famously broke up and made a freaking tour out of the phrase they used for the reunion. So it's and the Stones somehow still keep on going. By God,
Yeah, it's amazing.
they're crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah, Dad and Patrick saw them at the stadium out here not that long ago, and they're still kicking ass. It's like they got to be clones or cyborgs at this point, Mick and Keith. They have to, right? Like, God.
All right.
I saw the Stones once live in 1966 at the LA Sports Arena. And,
Of course, sports arena became a whole. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point there too. All right, well, that brings us down to number one, which on my list, I contacted JJ a couple of days ago and told him I wanted to make my number one a tie between two songs because I noticed that I had, left one off, which was one of my favorites. So one of my tie for number one is Surfin' Safari, which we've already talked about a bit about, and the other one is Surfin'. So I'll talk about both a little bit and then split them apart. Both of these were written by Brian and Mike, and Surfin' became their first single, the first Beach Boys single that came out, 1961. It came out in November of 61. It was that popular right out of the door. Beach Boys were originally called do either one of you know what their original name was?
Oh, I did. Dan, I'm on the spot. I don't remember. Oh, that sucks.
Same.
The Pendletons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
After
the Pendletons,
the shirts that they wore, if you look at those early covers, I have one hanging in the back here, but if you look at the early album covers, you can see that they wore these blue Pendleton shirts.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
And,
that's gonna.
Is that
that's
like
gonna
the
piss me off.
Wonders and the Oneaters? The
yeah,
Pendletons?
there you go. The Pendletons, yeah. Very catchy, right? I'm not sure who thought of that name.
I know y'all got it, but how many of y'all at home got that?
I was gonna say, if you got that in the room, you are in the right place.
Right. How many got the Wonders and the Oneaters?
That's right. Which of the 57 of you watching actually understood that reference? Who among you is Captain America? I ask you.
We'll see if anybody pops up. Interestingly enough, the Pendletons played a high school dance at my high school. Back when I was a sophomore, they played a dance. I wasn't at the dance.
Tremendous.
But, shortly after that, they changed their name to the Beach Boys. It was actually the Beach Boys was come up with by a PR man at Capitol Records, who changed their name on the record when they released it. Supposedly, none of them knew about it. There's a controversy back and forth about did any of the Beach Boys know about the name change before the record came out. But it's, it came out and, calling them the Beach Boys, the song Surfin', when in reality, as those who know much about the Beach Boys know, that Dennis Wilson was the only one in the band that ever surfed. None of the rest of the Beach Boys ever were surfers. And I can clearly remember I was in either 8th or 9th grade when that single came out. We would have a little transistor radio, AM transistor radio, 1961 now. I mean, we're dinosaur time. And walking around listening to that, singing the bomb, bomb, dip, 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 bomb, bomb, dip, dip, dip.
Yeah, I was going to say that's how you could tell that this was one of their first songs, because it still very heavily relied on the doo-wop sound.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't really crossed over to the rock surf sound yet.
Yep.
They grabbed that Mike Love came up with that hook, that bomb bomb dip to dip to dip, and he kind of stole it from Jan and Dean's Baby Talk.
Yep.
Baby Talk has a similar kind of a riff in it.
And Jenny Lee also.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
For the folks at home, 1961 was 3 years before. Well, wait, 64 was the Beatles' first album in this country, right?
Yeah, 63 is when they
hit New York and at Sullivan. So this is 2 years before the Beatles actually came here. So that's how important the Beach Boys were. They were hitting here in America before the Beatles ever came across the Atlantic. So that's a pretty big deal.
Absolutely, they were the top band and stayed the top American band even after the Beatles came out.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, there's very few people once the Beatles came that actually even got a sniff at taking them off the top of the charts. It was very few and far between. But the Beach Boys were doing it before they even came. So
I'm going to go ahead with Surfin' Safari, even though we've kind of talked about it already. This was a single that had 409 on the B side. Surfin' Safari was 1962, and Surfin' and Surfing USA, Surfin' Safari sum up the California sound to me and inspired me to get a surfboard and learn how to surf myself. The music inspired me to do that.
Right.
I wanted to be what the Beach Boys sang about. A lot of us. We actually, myself and some friends of mine, my best friend and I, got some guitars and started to learn how to play guitars, and found a drummer and a saxophone player and a bass player, and we made our own group. And we just played the instrumental surf songs in the beginning. Gradually, we found out that one of us in the band, not me, had a good enough voice to sing, and we started to include some of those early Beach Boy songs in the repertoire of our band. Of course, once we heard the Beatles, the direction of the group entirely changed. While we had been known as the Mustangs and the Bishops were our names as a surf band, we started to copy the British invasion and became the last few.
Nice.
Even though our style changed, and we did continue to play a lot of those early songs. Then I started to grow long hair once I graduated from high school, and my persona evolved kind of from a surfer beach boy to a hippie long hair. Funny anecdote, around that time of January 1966, my best friend and I decided to move out and get our own place. So we got an apartment in Hermosa Beach. We were on 4th and Hermosa Avenue, which is basically 1 block from the water.
Yeah.
But now we're growing our hair long, and we're into some other things. We were combining both of our loves at that time by moving there.
Right.
At that time, We weren't necessarily appreciated by the surfers on the beach, though. We were often harassed and made fun of by the surfers for the length of our hair and style of our dress. Thus, we started spending most of our time in Hollywood rather than at the beach. But everything goes full circle, as we talked about several times here. And now I can't get enough of the surf and the sand again in my life.
Right.
Find myself living only 5 minutes from the beach in Florida
Right.
and spending my summers in a place I only dreamed about as a young surfer, and that's in Bali. So it all goes around in a circle and comes back again. But yeah, the surfers didn't think it was cool to have long hair, and eventually all of the surfers had got long hair too, and
Right.
all of the groups kind of meld together. Beach Boys will always be part of my playlist, and I still enjoy pulling out my guitar and doing a couple of licks of old surf music every once in a while. That's the end of my list.
That's a great list. It's funny. I never really think about this now, but I go back to when I was a kid and didn't go out in that area a whole lot. Beach Boys being part of Capitol Records, I never really got to see the Capitol Records building up close at all because I was always my whole life was up here in the valley. Never really went down into Hollywood. Never had to for any particular reason, but every single time I go now to the Pantages, or every time I go to see my friends at the Bourbon Room down there, the first thing you see when you get off that subway is the giant Capitol Records building. And it's like, man, this has been such a part of history, and now it's just kind of here, and it's like it's an everyday thing for me. It's like, oh, yeah, there it is. Hi, and keep walking. If I'd done that as a early teen or a young kid walking, wow, it's not even a wow anymore, and that's just so. I don't know why it stuck in my mind right now when I kept seeing the Capitol Records logo on the albums, but it's just funny how things go in life. That something that seems so just wow when you see it on the newsreel or when you're watching a movie, it's just like yeah, it's just there. Just kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to transition to JJ's list now, and as he does that,
I've done it already.
I am going to read off Emmanuel's list as was given during the course of my list. He had Good Vibrations at number 10, and California Girls at number 9, Barbara Ann at 8 rather, excuse me. Wouldn't It Be Nice at 7, I Get Around at 6, Surfin' USA at 5, Fun at number 4. His number 3 was Kokomo. Number 2, which I don't think was mentioned yet, Don't Worry Baby. And his number 1 was God Only Knows. So again, a lot of similarities, but one that wasn't mentioned yet, Don't Worry Baby, which I think is so pretty cool that there was even a difference in the chat room. That's pretty cool.
We talked about Kokomo a little bit earlier, but Kokomo was actually written by Mike Love rather than Brian Wilson. But he still
That might be why I geared more toward it. I don't know why, but in the time I met the Beach Boys, which was only once or twice, I kind of vibed more with Mike every time I met him, as opposed to Brian. So
Mike Love was actually at Rishikesh in India with the Beatles when they went to Maharishi's meditation retreat. The Beatles were there and Mike Love was there. It was all 4 of the Beatles, Mike Love. There were several other there, Donovan, but Mike Love has continued to follow transcendental meditation, as did George Harrison.
Yes,
through all that time.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be something that would bring those two together, or bring those guys together, because it just and again, you pointed out earlier, Mike was wanting to keep things the way they were and keep going with the style they had, and Brian was trying to get more serious. It definitely seemed like that was the vibe, and maybe I picked up on it as a kid, not really knowing what it was. So.
All right, so kicking off my list is a song, and I don't remember the name of the movie, but I remember, back in the days, Pop and I would sit there and we'd watch whatever it was, AMC, American Movie Classics, Turner Classic Movies, whatever it was. And every now and again, they'd show like these little snippets or songs in between the movies, kind of like teasing other movies.
Mhm.
And they would always show this clip of the Beach Boys from a movie. And I don't remember the movie, but the song they were playing in the clip, and I always gravitated towards it after seeing that, and it stuck with me, was Little Honda.
Ah, yes.
One of the few songs of theirs that's not about a car, it's actually about a motorcycle.
Right?
So maybe that little bit of a difference is one of the things that kind of attracted me, because as we talked about, it was the sun and the surf and the girls and the cars. And here's a song about a motorbike.
And a Honda at that.
Yeah,
Wasn't even a Harley or anything.
but it's just really up tempo, really catchy.
Yep.
And like I just remember watching the TV, and like it would pan from the main characters, as oftentimes happen in those movies, just gradually pan, and oh look, the Beach Boys happen to be in the same room. Let's sing a song.
For no reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next, we're gonna pan the other way, and Captain Geek and the Shrimp Shack Shooters are gonna start singing. There's another
If
one.
you know at home, you know.
But just so random. But the song, again, it was infectious. It was catchy. Made you tap your toe.
Yep.
And I always gravitated towards it. I remember getting a copy of a CD. I think it was called The Beach Boys' Greatest Car Songs.
Oh, wow.
And it was on there, which was ironic because it's not about a car, as we've established, but
yes.
because it was about a vehicle, I guess they went ahead and lumped it in there just to get an even number of tracks on the
Very
disc.
likely, yeah.
But that was how I had it, because it was one of those gems that wasn't really thrown out there on the radio all the time. It wasn't on the greatest hits. So it was hard pressed to find that on like a compilation. So to get that and get like Little Deuce Coupe, Shut Down, those other car songs at the same time, it's like, okay, here's a nice little cruising compilation, if you will.
It's funny you mentioned that, because just briefly, when my uncle, who's since passed away, he actually made his living because he had invented a cruise control for motorcycles. Like, he actually invented a way to set those things on cruise control, which was mind-blowing at the time that it happened. But it wasn't for Hondas. It was only for, it was either only for Harleys, or like it was something that Hondas weren't included in the configuration. When they were able to get Hondas into the lineup, I'm 99% sure they used Little Honda as like the little local ad soundtrack behind it, because it just made sense. Yeah. So I just thought it was a neat little anecdote. I was like, oh shit, there you go. I never even thought of that until you mentioned. Like, yeah, that's right. That I forgot that song existed because I tried to block it out. But yeah, that's a great take, dude. I like that. That's good.
Number 9 is another one of those kind of like getting back to what worked after kind of distancing for a moment. And for me, it's All Summer Long.
Oh, there you go.
T-shirts, cutoffs, and a pair of thongs. Back when thongs weren't a bikini bottom or underwear, they were talking about flip-flops.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Just great imagery painted throughout the lyrics of the song. And again, kind of like Do It Again, which isn't on my list, but can be lumped into the same type of song. Let's just have this fun again all summer long. You don't want the summer to end.
That's a really good point. That as we discuss the Beach Boys and we look at their music, it really all lies in the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
Each song paints a picture through its lyrics. Each song, you listen to the lyrics. You're not listening to the backbeat. It's not a dance song, although you can dance to them.
Right.
Each one of them has important lyrics that's describing something. Uh, Being a poet, I'm loving to write poetry. I love the imagery that they create with their lyrics. And then Brian's music just really pulls it together. But,
Mhm.
we have to look back at Mike Love once again, Jeff, at
Nope.
being the main lyricist for many of the songs.
Yeah, I really feel like the lyrics of the Beach Boys can stand out very well on their own if they're just read like you said as like a poem or like a spoken situation. The music is fantastic, but it's just kind of there in most of the tracks. They're
Mhm.
great melodies, but if you don't know what song it is, you're just kind of like, oh, this is nice. I don't know what it is, but it sounds really pretty. Like,
Mhm.
but if you get the lyrics in there, oh.
The lyrics and the harmony.
Yeah, yes, harmony. It's very true. By the way, 60 people. Thank you. Appreciate you guys in the audience.
Yes.
God, you guys are making my friggin' day so much better. I love you guys at home.
Definitely. So number 8 is a song that I know I heard it on the radio prior to this, or on one of the Beach Boy albums that my dad or my mom would even play. It
Right.
might have been on Endless Summer, not sure, but I remember like really taking note of it when it was used in Look Who's Talking To.
Ah, yes.
When I grow up to be a man.
Right.
And just again, the lyrics and the way they paint the imagery, will I dig the same things that turned me on as a kid? Will I love my wife the rest of my life when I grow up to be a man? Like, it's still too young to even know if he's going to stay together with his woman for the rest of his life. Or was it an immature decision to get married? Like that's kind of deep when you think about it, because here they are in their 20s and they're not even sure that the woman that they went ahead and married is going to be the woman they're with for the rest of their life. And as we know, Brian did have a second wife. So clearly he wasn't with her the rest of his life.
No.
But it's just, when you really stop and think about that, like, was rushing into marriage an immature decision?
Yeah, it's something you ponder, and I think I've learned this. I think anybody that gets married within a short amount of time together before the age of 25, either one of them, you're out of your damn mind. Just throwing it out there. If anybody's got married younger than that and still together after all these years, great. My parents are a great example of that. But most of my relationships and most of the people I know intimately relationships that started before they were either one of them 25 and they got married within a year or two, nope. They signing papers now. It's like, it doesn't work out. You got to have your head on straight. And this is a great, maybe not coming of age song, but definitely more of a growing up, like Wayne option song, which is just great. And it goes so well in the movie too.
Yeah. Because I mean, they're playing it and using it in the movie as Mikey is growing up.
Right.
And granted, he's not getting to 14, 15 as they rattle off in the song, but
Right.
He's getting to that age where you don't need Bruce Willis to be his voice no more.
Right. Yes.
Number 7. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bruce Willis being your internal monologue about marriage and life is probably not the best way to go back then anyway, for being honest.
That's fair. I don't know. Back then, maybe it was. Nowadays, maybe not. But
well, I'm not going to rag on him now. That's just mean.
That's
but
right.
yeah. Anyway,
Number 7 is a song that definitely came to me later in life, because again, it's not one that gets played a whole hell of a lot on the radios. It does get included on some of the compilations, but it's not as poppy and commercial as the surfing ones that we've discussed ad nauseum. And I remember when I started seeing trailers on TV for the third season of a show that I was really into back in 2008, a show called Heroes. And the season was being, you know, kind of labeled as villains. I was expecting to start hearing heroes and villains. And where'd that image go? There it goes. And for whatever reason, they chose not to use it. And I don't get it. I think the marketing was like right there. Maybe they just couldn't get the rights to it, if we're being honest. But it's one of those things that I was like, it's sitting right there in front of y'all. Heroes, villains.
I hate that show, Jay. Sorry, I
But
cut out there. My bad.
I think if anything, the one thing you're gonna notice the most about my side of things is the harmonies in all of my song choices. Like if you go and you listen to these as we look at Jeff's thumb, and you just compare track for track, I firmly believe that harmonically, I'm not sure if that's even the right word, but harmonically, the Beach Boys are the greatest band of all time.
Hard to
Nobody
argue.
can compare to their harmonies as a band. I don't care what group you're trying to throw at me. You can give me any of those old school a cappella groups or the doo-wop groups or the barbershop groups. Nobody can touch the Beach Boy harmonies.
And Brian was really responsible for that. He was
Absolutely.
able to build. We talked about the wall of sound, and he built those layers of sound. And he knew, and them being, brothers, three brothers, they always say, that family can harmonize. Their voices are more similar. I'm not
Yes.
quite sure how to say it, but Brian
And
was
to
able to take and capitalize on each of those voices.
Yeah, and to Emmanuel's point here, yes, even over the Beatles.
Yeah, and
Because if you really think about it, there's only a few Beatles songs where you really kind of get the harmony and the layers, because is a prime example. The Beach
yes.
Boys were doing that every freaking track.
No, they were.
The Beatles, you don't get that every song. You don't get that as the Beach Boys used harmonies like you would use a musical instrument.
Right.
And you didn't get that with the Beatles.
No. And, to Jerry's point, there's that old, phrasing or way of thinking is that, when you talk to brothers from the, brothers or, close cousins or whatever, they all tend to sound the same over the phone when you're talking to them. You don't, when you call the house, you go, oh, wait, it's you, not you. Okay. That's how the brothers sound. They sounded so close in voice style that the harmonies just blended like a beautiful cocktail in the blender, man. They just went so well together, all three of them. And then, of course, Mike is the cousin, also the similar familial sound. We do see the super chat, Nick. If we get to it before I have to leave, I'll read it off. If not, the Williams boys will get to it. I promise you.
Okay. So number 6 for me is another one of those songs where, much like Pop pointed out with Sweet Little 16, how they just kind of took a song and changed the lyrics. You've got the Beach Boys version of this, and then there's also a Jan and Dean version where it's the exact same melody but different lyrics. The Beach Boys version is Catch a Wave.
Yep.
The Jan and Dean version is Sidewalk Surfing.
Yep.
But you listen to them side by side, and it's the same melody, just different lyrics. One's about surfing, one's about skateboarding. My dad was a surfer. When I was a kid, I was a skater.
Yeah, we rode our skateboards too back in the day, but they were metal wheels from roller skates. Yeah, those are both Both great songs. You could do another show on Jan and Dean.
That's fair.
Or
So
do a song
Definitely
on
something to
surf.
contemplate down the road.
let's
I have
talk
a
about
feeling that would have to be a shared list, though, because I don't think it would be as many differences.
We could just do a surf music show.
that. Oh God, we'll here for a week on that
So
shit.
we'll just rerun this one. Okay.
Okay. Well, you guys have you,
With
you
a couple
guys
more
have
editions.
something. You have something on open mic night coming up about beach party.
Beach party.
We
Yes.
do. The month
Listen
of
to him with the
August.
plugs. Well, shit. I'll
Beach
go ahead and put
party
shit.
karaoke.
Oh wait, I can't. I can't. We're on your list. We'll do it at the end anyway.
But yeah, catch a wave. You know, I was never a surfer. I boogie boarded,
yeah.
but you know, if you liked one of the songs, you liked both of the songs because both of them, while being similar in melody, were unique in their own right as far as what they were promoting and the trend that they were trying to get out there to kids. You know, don't be afraid to try the newest sport around. It's catching on in every city and town.
True.
Cannot believe I missed that one.
Same.
Cannot,
Out of all of them, that's the one that surprised me the most. But
yeah, I cannot believe I missed it.
but the rest of your list is pretty much what I expected from you. Like maybe swap that with be true to your school, but the fact that you became a teacher, it's only right that you
Right.
had that in
Yeah.
your list. So
Yeah. Gotta have that. That's funny.
number 5 is a song that neither of you had, but we have seen mentioned in the chat room on lists,
Mm,
and that's Don't Worry Baby.
there you go. That's what I said at the end there with the manuals.
Again, the harmonies. And for years, I just thought this was a love song because the way
Yeah.
the song starts. But listening to it lately here in my downtime for working, talking about racing a car.
Right.
It's all about a car race.
Yep.
The
Yep.
first verse is a love song, you know, and what she's telling him, but the last verse, it's like, she told me before I go and race my car. It's like, wait, what? The song's about a drag race?
It's amazing what you pick up on as you like listen further and like grow as a
Seriously.
person. It's crazy.
It really is. But again, the melodies, the
Yeah.
harmonies are what I always come back to with this one.
Yep. This is one of the few songs that is non-negotiable when it comes to my dad's radio. Like if it comes on, like there's no turning the channel. You just not allowed.
No,
Yep.
definitely not.
Yep.
All right. Number 4. I'd be lying if I said that I knew this before the mid-90s.
Here we go. There we go.
Because it was an infamous wedding on ABC that introduced this song to everyone, me and Jeff's generation. Forever.
Look at John's face. I know him and Lori weren't actually together, but that man is in love. Like, damn it. Oh God. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, Dennis does not get the credit he deserves.
Yeah.
And arguably this was his masterpiece.
It is a beautiful song.
You know, and if you believe what you read and what you see in TV movies and everything, Murray Wilson, the brother's father, was about as abusive as Joe Jackson.
Mm.
And especially hard on Dennis.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing one of the TV movies, and they got to this point, and Murray admitted it was the one thing he was most proud of Dennis for. And that kind of says everything you need to say about it right there.
Right?
And then, again, its inclusion in Full House. It's a sleeper. It didn't even start making greatest hits CDs until Full House. John Stamos brought that song to life.
Yep.
And brought it to a level where kids our age younger,
Yeah.
that is how they know this song. I
Yep.
would almost even wager to bet, and I could be completely wrong here. I don't know how well Pop knew that song before Full House because it was such a sleeper song.
Yeah.
Like, how familiar were you with the song Forever before we saw it on that episode of Full House, Dad?
Not really, no. But do you have a personal connection and recollection to that song? Something that you personally connect to? Because I have a memory of that song
Oh.
with you at Lakewood High School.
I remember doing that for a lip sync contest and getting smoked out of the water by the other guy that performed. It was like they were trying so hard to get people to do a lip sync contest, and I was like the first one to enter. That was the song I chose. The deadline came past, nobody else entered, so they kept extending the deadline because they wanted to get some other people. And then finally someone decided that they were going to do Black Sheep, The Choice Is Yours.
Oh,
The
geez.
song, you can get with this or you can get with that.
Right.
And the dude that did that just blew me out of the water.
That sucks.
And it's just like, okay, so I've been the only contestant for how long? And I lose to a dude that just signed up at the last minute? Like, is that what you're talking about?
Well, yeah, not necessarily that part of it, but that you chose that song to be the one that you wanted to lip sync to. That was my point, not the more downside to it.
Yeah, I mean, I gravitated towards that song as soon as I heard it. I just adored it. I mean, first of all, it's coming from Uncle Jesse. Who didn't want to be as cool as Uncle Jesse? Seriously, especially when I was already living with Danny Tanner. Who didn't want to be as cool as Uncle Jesse? But and then you figure the life of its own that song took on the show, the episodes that
just
they
on the
spun
show,
off
yeah.
of that. Yeah. First there was the wedding, then there was the whole he gets signed and they're going to make a music video and they want him to do it as a rap, and then he finally does it the version that got released on the CD, and the Beach Boys are cameoing in the music video. Then he performs it at Disney World, and just like all the different episodes. And then when they even came back for Fuller House, they did it like 2 or 3 times throughout that series.
Yeah. The only reason they went to Disney World for that episode was because Jesse was touring.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, if I remember right, I think that's when the episode after that was Ripper's going, dude, like we've like lost our way here, and ditched him. And freaking signed Barry Williams for, I mean, good for you guys because you got a Williams connection, but like, damn, Jesse got screwed on that one.
I could sit here and we could be talking till beyond your dad coming. So we want to try and keep things moving a little bit, but how could you not give love to Dennis in Forever though?
No, Forever. It's if that ever happens for me and I do get married, that's going to be either the first dance or on the dance list or on the song list. And if it's not, then I'm going to sign divorce papers right there on the spot. Like, nope, that's not negotiable. Anyway,
number 3 on the list is a sentimental song, is a little bit more of a special song. It's the song that was essentially chosen to be my song for my daughter's mom. You're So Good to Me.
It's a great song too.
It's funky, it's catchy, it's corny, but it's a guy in love at the end of the day.
Right.
And not all of us are slick, cool, calm, and debonair when we're in love. Most of us are corny and, all those other things. So it just kind of is what it is.
That's accurate, brother.
But it's another one that gets lost in the shuffle because it's not a greatest hit, if you will.
Yeah, and unlike Forever, it didn't get picked up by one of the biggest television shows in the world, and carried to the end zone 30 years later. Still, so
Seriously.
yeah,
Number 2 and number 1 are really interchangeable for me. I'm going to
okay,
leave them the order that I have them, 2 and 1, but depending on day of the week, they could definitely get flip-flopped. We're
Okay.
coming back to the harmonies. We're just coming back to the harmonies, the imagery, and the sound that are definitively Beach Boys. First and number 2 is The Girls on the Beach.
nice.
And then at the same token, number 1 is The Warmth of the Sun.
Wow, two takes. I don't get to hear a whole lot. That's awesome. And again, your list was going to be different from us and me and your dad's, and you mentioned so.
Yeah. And number 1, The Warmth of the Sun is another one that goes back to that Stars and Stripes. Willie Nelson does a killer version of that.
Yeah, he does.
And it's not something you would expect, which is, I think, why it comes out of left field and just kind of stays with you. Willie
Agreed.
Nelson's Warmth of the Sun kind of haunts you and stays with you the same way Johnny Cash's Hurt does.
Yes.
And I'm not sure 100% if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they
Right.
both have that haunting quality to them.
Yes.
I don't think I've heard Willie Nelson do Warmth of the Sun. I'm going to have to search that.
Yeah, we'll have to
see
link
if
you on
I
that.
can find it and send it to you, but
Did you
Yeah,
put that on was that on that playlist that you sent?
no, all the
Okay.
ones that were on that playlist were the original Beach Boy versions.
That's what I thought.
Because trust me, if I had put covers in there, then David Lee Roth's California Girls would have been on there too,
Valid.
which the Beach Boys did backup for.
Yes.
Yep.
And they did backup for pretty much all the tracks on Stars and Stripes too. Whoever the country artist was that did lead, they were lead, but the backing vocals were the rest of the Beach Boys. Sans for Dennis, of course, who had already passed by the time that came out, because this was early to mid 90s. So Carl was still with us. And I think he was probably the spearhead, because I remember, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I remember reading somewhere that when the Beach Boys were touring, it was written in the contract that you were hiring Carl Wilson plus other musicians. That way there was always going to be a Wilson as part of the group, since Brian wasn't really doing the tour thing at the time.
Didn't Mike Love also do backing vocals on Katy Perry's California Girls with a U? Gurls?
God, I know Snoop was part of the actual track. I don't know if the Beach Boys were involved. I'll have to look that up. I don't know.
For
Good
which
question.
one?
I think Mike Love might have been on there.
California Girls with the U by Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, that'd be a question for outside of the upper tiers current knowledge base.
Yeah, I like Katy Perry's song, but
Yes.
considering it's not the actual, like a cover of the actual song,
Yeah, I'm not sure
it's
either.
its own entity. I don't know if any of the Beach Boys were involved with that.
Well, there's
Even
your
Mike, who
homework.
seems to do anything for a Klondike bar. So
And that would be valid, and that's why he and I sing so well, because I'm the same way.
but that is my list.
Very
And
nice.
then
I like it.
see that Jeff just added it in, so we can get that little synergy open mic night beach party coming in August. I think
Yes.
there's a version that actually has the date on it. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
for some reason I don't have that, but it's
okay.
we have it scheduled for the Saturday before your birthday.
Yes.
So yes. So that would be I think that'd be in the 17th, if I remember right.
Something like that.
So it sounds accurate. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure it has to be before, because the weekend of your birthday is all in London. The week after that is the show in Berlin, and very likely all out. So
Yes.
yeah, it has to be that Saturday. So the 17th. of August will be Beach Party. There you go.
I'll have to stay up late that night.
I love
Okay.
it. I love it,
Maybe
Jerry.
we can
That's
get
great.
you to pop in and actually sing a song.
I
Yeah,
don't know
I like
about
what you
that.
did there.
Just make sure you're one of the first ones to sing. That way, if you've got to duck out to bed, you can. But I mean, if they can tolerate me and the shit that I put out there, they can actually stomach listening to somebody who was in a legitimate rock band.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
It's been a lot
Yeah.
of fun, guys.
Yes.
It'll
Always
be
fun
fun.
doing these. I mean,
Yes.
there's reasons why people keep asking for you to come back, and a lot of it is, as was pointed out in the chat earlier, your knowledge of music and stuff, and the way you present like a teacher. You're educating the audience,
Yes.
and you're educating the audience on a topic that everybody loves. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm in this class for 2 hours. Can they shut up so I can go somewhere else? We're educating them, and we're talking about things we're passionate about and things that everybody loves. There isn't a person on this earth that doesn't like music.
Mhm.
They may not
In
like
some way.
this band. You may be into polka, jazz, blues, folklorico, whatever. You love some form of music.
Yep. And these guys cover most of that. So
Yeah.
that's you know.
Music is what ties us all together. You know,
It
as
does.
it's been said so many times, music is the international language.
I was going to say, you know,
everyone understands music.
yeah, you watch the old Star Treks and even the more modern Star Treks talk about that universal translator. It's like, man, just get some music in there. You're good. Everybody understands music. You just got to play the kind of music you want to convey the mood for. You want to convey you're pissed off? Throw on some freaking Metallica from like 1980 something. You won't get the message across that you're about to whoop somebody's ass. That's going to be a thing. You know, you want to get a little harmony, little peace, little love out there. Throw any of these guys' tracks on. You know, you want to go out to the you want to convey you want to go have British food. You put on Beatles. I mean, it all works. It's all good. So anyway, I
know
digress.
I grew up with my dad exposing me to a lot of different kinds of music, so that I had a very wide appreciation for all kinds of music. And I'm sure that, Jeff, through your dad, you've heard different types of music than what you might just listen to yourself, and that's what I tried to do with JJ, is expose him. He definitely knew who my favorites were, but there was always more, variety of music around the house.
Yeah, there are very few things I will actively avoid listening to or turn off if it comes up on on a radio dial or whatever. Radio dial, listen to me, God, hell of a mind. If it comes up on as we're flipping through the channels on the satellite, very few things will actually turn off. But most often than not, if something comes on, we'll find something that we can agree on to play on the radio, or a CD player or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of commonalities, so it's definitely a good thing. So with that being said, everybody can agree on one type of music or another. Tomorrow's presentation, JJ, New Japan may not be everybody's cup of tea, but this card they've got tomorrow that's going to be actually out not too far from your neck of the woods these days, out in Ontario.
Yeah.
And we're going to be on the air. I think it's still the usual 7 o'clock each Pacific. I'll have to check when I get back from the cargo delivery next door. But
I actually looked into tickets for that show, and I was finding them as low as $29.
Yeah, it's
for decent seats, not nosebleeds. And the Ontario Arena, there's really not a bad seat. It's like the Long Beach Arena.
No, that's very much so. So I encourage everybody that's in the area or has a thought process of going to the show, go to the show. Go enjoy yourself in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's going to be awesome. They got a great card. I mean, Moxley's defending the title. You've got Nick Nemeth on this card. You've got Mustafa Ali on this card. It's going to be a really cool show. I'm looking forward to getting home and being part of it behind the scenes. I know Noah's going to call it. I know you're going to pop into when you can. So I'm looking forward to that. Always looking forward to this brand of shenanigans that we do every Saturday. So that should be very interesting tomorrow.
Yes, lots of AEW talk tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that Collision was preempted last week for the Star Wars marathon, not NBA playoffs or NHL playoffs,
Yeah.
has Warner Brothers Discovery kind of had its fill of AEW. The fact that Forbidden Door, they're going to be partnering with Stardom officially this year for the first time.
Oh,
We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, there's the negative side. We are going to dip into a little bit of what happened to Sky Blue during the Ring of Honor tapings on Wednesday, where fans just couldn't keep their mouths shut when it came to being sexually suggestive towards her.
just awful. But
all of that
much
and
like
more on
War-
Open Mic Night.
much like Warner Brothers Discovery, if you couldn't get enough of Star Wars last weekend, or if you happen to miss our stuff, please go back in the archives, because we reposted our episodes of DADS from over the last 4 years, where we ranked live action films and the top 10 characters of the Star Wars galaxy. We also did a very fun episode of Star Wars trivia as part of Open Mic Game Night in the style of Jeopardy. If any person was part of that or watched it, didn't have fun, they must have been not paying attention or distracted otherwise, because that was a hell of an hour of television. My God.
Did you see that, Dad?
I did. I didn't see the trivia. No.
Oh,
But I
okay.
did.
That's what I was curious about. I would be curious to have you watch the hour as Renegade Trebek hosted
Right.
and
Yes,
wrote
exactly.
all the questions. And I'd be curious to know what you came up with money-wise if you were playing along like you and Mike used to play Jeopardy at home at the old Casa. See how you did with those.
Yeah, it was a
I
fun
tried
little.
to make it pretty general knowledge, general Star Wars knowledge, sticking to the 11 theatrically released live action films. There was one category about The Mandalorian. Nothing else outside of that type of stuff, though.
There was one topic that talked about animated stuff, but it was,
it was more the actors and the characters they've done outside of the Star Wars universe, and who's the actor from the Star Wars universe.
Yes. I need to say wrap it up. So I'm sorry to do it like publicly, but I got the clock at the door here. So thank you, Jerry, for always being able to pop on to shows like this and being part of our crazy shenanigans. Thank you for being the music and life educator that you were to this guy, for bringing him along into this world, because he's I can't value the importance of him on this and throughout this multiverse. So thank you for that, and for everything that you always do for us. And JJ, thank you, brother. And I'll let you close out the show. Good night, guys.
Well, Jeff kind of did it pretty eloquently there. I echo his sentiments. Thank you, Pop, for joining us for the wild and crazy ride. Thank you to the 64 of you that are out there still watching us on a Friday afternoon.
Love it.
For Jeff, for Pop, I am the Renegade JJ Williams saying thank you for watching. We will see you guys next time.